Welcome to the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Vanacker, your host, and my intention is to inspire you to find more joy in your life through the stories from our guests and the science on joy and purpose. I'm delighted to introduce to you today Byron and Mariah Edgington, who are not only husband and wife, but also co-authors of the Journey Well best-selling book series. They're also both contributors to Biz Catalyst 360 and Medium Digest. Let me tell you about each one of them now. Mariah is a retired critical care ER flight nurse, professional speaker, and author. After gaining the insight that she is neurodivergent with ADHD and dyslexia, Mariah now mentors other neurodivergents, giving them tools, tips, and techniques to live their fullest potential. And Byron was a commercial and military helicopter pilot for 50 years and is the author of several books. In 2005, he received his bachelor's in English and creative writing from the Ohio State University at age 63. In 2012, Byron won the prestigious Bailey Prize in nonfiction from the Swedenborg Foundation Press. They have 3 daughters and 7 grandchildren, and they currently live and write in Iowa City. Mariah and Byron, it's a pleasure to have you both here today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thank you, Andrea. It's wonderful. Thanks for the opportunity.
It's my pleasure. As you know, during this podcast, we talk mainly about what brings joy to this world, to your world. And before we dive into this topic, I was curious as to whether you wanted to share any more additional insights about the beautiful journeys that you've both had until now.
Well, thank you very much. We have found through our whole entire time together that when we can bring joy to each other and to others, it elevates us. And we found that that works for everyone, as you know,
Yes.
because you pedal in joy. And boy, doesn't that make a better world? Because when we look at our troubles, and as you readily know from your past history, what it can be, we both worked in the medical area and found that people had hardships and their journeys weren't always easy, especially when it comes to medical crises like you went through. And if we can bring ourselves fully present for others and find some way to elevate them with joy or positivity, we can just increase the value that we bring to everyone else.
It's so true what you're saying. And this basically reminds me of your fantastic book. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the inspiration and what really are the key takeaways that you feel are so important to convey to other individuals to journey well, as the title states.
Yes, we love talking about it because it's been a very interesting, a very gratifying journey for us, Andrea, because we realized after we retired, we realized that we just really enjoy lifting other people up, seeing other people succeed. And so that's where our business entity these days, we called it Mandate to Elevate, because we realized that has been our calling. That was our career. And now it's what gives us joy, is lifting other people up, because we were so good at it all those years as a pilot myself and as a nurse for Mariah. And we were very good at it and we really enjoyed it. So it was a natural fit for us to just continue doing that. And about Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough, that series, we just continue doing that because we enjoy focusing on the positive. And we're grateful every day for what actually is good about life and the joy that people can find in just about anything. And we accentuate that part of it. And that's where so far 2 of our books, the first one that you held up there, and let me give you the whole title for that for anybody who is wonders. It's Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough. Rediscover your passion, purpose, and love of yourself and life. Mm-hmm. And I should mention too that our second book has been published. It was published March 14th. That book is now a #1 Amazon bestseller, And that title is Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough, Mindset Matters. Because this is another aspect of joy for us. We are convinced that our mindset creates our reality. And if we can, first of all, if we can understand that a lot of our mindset is a choice, that leads to more joy and a better life for everybody.
And you brought that up in your TEDx talk. And it was I encourage everybody who's listening, if you haven't seen Andrea's TEDx talk, be sure you do, because it's so inspiring. And how you brought yourself up. You could have just gone down and negative and, oh, woe is me, but you did exactly the opposite. And how wonderful that is. People need to watch that because it's so gratifying to see.
It is. And I should mention too, one more thing before I forget. When we started the mandate to elevate, we should have seen this coming, I guess. But we have discovered that by elevating other people, we lift ourselves. It's just unavoidable. And so you probably discovered the same thing yourself.
I really find refreshing the type of work that you do. And as you mentioned, the importance of sharing the wisdom behind your research and what you've experienced to actually encourage others to really make that shift in terms of embracing a more positive mindset. Because yes, the reality is that our lives are going to be filled with ups and downs. It's never going to be a beautiful, perfect journey all along. And actually, that is what makes it so interesting. Actually, every day you can wake up and look forward to something new and exciting that will happen, rather than look at the future with fear. So I'm curious to learn more about specific journeys that you have had that have really marked you in a very profound way in terms of how you look at life, what is really important, and connecting the dots with everything that you have in your book series.
Many years ago, I found that holistic therapies helped my patients, and it helped me as well. And I did take it a step further beyond my paid occupation. I went and volunteered at hospice beds. And so I had the honor of being with many patients as they transitioned out of the world, out of this life. And that created such a sense of peace within me. And I saw a lot more than I even did through my nursing career. And I was able to become more spiritual through that opportunity, basically. And I know many people are fearful of that time of life, of death and the unknown. And you going through surgery, you had to encounter that thought of this is a real possibility. I may never wake up, because that kind of a surgery, as you went through, could possibly end in death. You never know. That said, you learn new tools because of that experience, and you have used that experience for positive. And so in my career, that's what I did. And Byron then took that also, and being as close as we are, he's integrated holistic practices into his life as well, and really feels that's added value.
Yes, and I should, my story is just a little bit different because it's kind of a circular thing. But I flew helicopters in the Army, and I was in Vietnam for a year. And when I got home from Vietnam, I admit I was a pretty bitter guy. I was pretty angry, and the experience in Vietnam wasn't the best. I questioned every day I was there. I questioned why I was there, why we were there. And so the upshot of that story is that I wasn't a very happy individual when I came home from Vietnam. But very, very shortly after, I began flying commercially. And I found a job flying for a hospital. And that gave me more joy and more fulfillment than any job I can imagine, because it allowed me to use the skills that I'd acquired in the military to help people when they needed it the most. And again, I was very good at what I did. And it was so gratifying to bring a patient into the hospital, many of whom should not have survived, And to see them get out of the hospital and go home was just the most rewarding thing imaginable. And so that's kind of to illustrate your point of how there's always something good to come out of everything if we look for it.
I fully understand what you're saying, being a pilot myself.
I know that. Yeah.
It's been more a hobby. I even got into aerobatic flying because it's just been a huge passion of mine. And just being out at altitude and seeing the world from a fresh perspective, it's so incredible to really take a step back and see the beauty of this planet, of this world. If you could maybe share with us, beyond, of course, the dimension that you just covered relating to saving lives and how fulfilling that was, what can you share with us also about the moments of awe or beauty that you've experienced while flying?
Well, first I'd have to add that I never did any aerobatics in a helicopter. I never got involved in that. But yeah, I mean, until you've done that, until you've been at the controls of an aircraft, I don't know that I can fully convey. I wrote about this in my first book, my memoir about flying. It's called The Sky Behind Me. It's just really hard to put that into words. It's just how, one of the things that jumps out at me is when you're flying, the world looks very orderly. It looks like everything has and it's easier to see how interconnected everything is. You know, there is no separate this, that, or the other thing. Everything is connected. And you get a very good sense of that from the air. And so, and I can share with you very shortly, one of the most awe-inspiring moments I ever had in the cockpit was being at 4,000 or 5,000 feet on a late summer evening and watching the aurora borealis through my cockpit window. And it was just, I can't even describe it. I don't have words for that. And I was getting paid for it. Maybe a double rainbow, because I flew tours on the island of Kauai in Hawaii the last 3 years I flew. And seeing double rainbows on the Napali coast of Kauai, I have no words to describe that.
Tell us now about your life as parents, and how did you bring joy to your kids in the process of their own journey?
We do have 3 daughters between us, and we're fortunate because all 3 of them are really very solid young women. And it's so much fun to watch them raising their families, because we do see some little bits of what we instilled in them, the confidence, the encouragement. We watch them encouraging their own kids and raising them up as well. So that makes us proud.
Sure.
That we know that they saw that in us too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of very gratifying.
Many people that I know have said that becoming grandparents, it has a different dimension of joy that maybe they did not necessarily experience with their own children. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Well, I can tell you a funny story about that. Mariah and I lived in Colombia, South America for 3 years. And so we picked up a fair amount of Spanish. Our older granddaughter, we tried to teach her the Spanish word for grandmother and grandfather. And grandmother is abuela.
Yes.
And grandfather is abuelo. I mean, she couldn't say them. So Mariah ended up being Aya, and I ended up being Yo-Yo. So that's one of the unpredictable parts of being is the names that they choose for you. Yeah. So, and probably when she's 25, I'll still be Yo-Yo if I'm still around.
I love it. Tell us how you now bring joy to others through your work. And I'm sure that you possibly have more plans to continue writing beautiful books that inspire others.
We have lots of ideas for different titles. Yes. I think one of the things we do, and it probably drives some people away, I don't know, I hope not, but we are just forever optimistic. We always find something good about everything. And we realize that there are certain stories, certain narratives that people have that are really tragic. We understand that. And so we don't really just force this on anybody, but in fact, we have discovered since we started speaking as public speakers, and for instance, just happened recently, we just recently did a TEDx, and people just seem to be really, they seem to gravitate toward our energy and our positivity. And it's something, quite frankly, we never really expected to happen, but it happens all the time. People just seem to want to be around us. And it's a little bit unsettling in a way.
Part of it is, as a society, we like to put everybody in a section. That kind of makes order out of our brain. And they see us and think, okay, geriatric or boomers, and over here.
Put them in the rocking chair where they belong. Yeah.
And we come on and we exude energy for that generation, and it totally switches people's mindset, because then they're curious. They come in at curious, like, wow, what are these? We do something very different. We celebrate our marriage every month. And so we were recently married 276 months. It'll be 277 months this month. But that's because we want to make sure that it stays energetic and fun and joyful. And these are different tips that we suggest that people do, is to find joy in any moment they can and look for the abundance that's in their life. Because once we are aware that our thoughts create our reality, then we realize that we get to choose what we focus on, and that will expand.
Something else I would add to that is Mariah is, am I allowed to say neurodivergent?
Yeah.
Yes. With ADHD and dyslexia, which is something we talked about in our TEDx. And I think when young people, especially when they see Mariah as a highly successful, highly credentialed professional as a nurse, Mariah was an ER and an ICU and a flight nurse, and people see her, what some people call disabilities, which we don't consider it that way, but to see her success has to bring them joy. It has to bring them some affirmation for their own journey if they share some of those characteristics.
First of all, I want to congratulate you on your TEDx and everything that you shared. It's so important. And indeed, this is what I recognize about both of you, your energy and this symbiotic connection that you both seem to have, that is just so beautiful. As you were mentioning before, your energy and the surprise looks that you ignite in certain people as they watch you. What is your advice to live at your age with vitality and energy that really allows you to enjoy life to the fullest?
I think that it's a choice. And just like when you were going into surgery, you could have been fearful, but you chose to be brave. You chose to trust. And when we let go of fear and anxiety, and we all have anxiety, it's going to be there. But when we choose to focus on the positive, or what we want to have happen, not what we don't want, but what we want to have the outcome be, and make it positive. And I even talk about this with people, not just what we focus on expands, but choosing positive words, choosing positive affirmations to follow I am. So instead of I am scared, it's I am brave. Instead of I'm no good at that, I am confident. And just by telling our mind these things, these simple little shifts, it changes us. And we say every day, I am energy. And we know that we're a high vibrational energy because we choose it. And it comes back to us. It
comes back to it, yeah. And I would add one little thing to that. We don't believe in the expression, I can't. I mean, there are certain things that are tough. They're a real challenge for people. But we prefer I can't yet. That is a better way to put things. You know, I can't play pickleball yet.
Yet.
and I don't want to yet, but nonetheless. So, yeah, and I would emphasize too what Mariah said about choice. We are, as everybody knows, we are surrounded these days with negative, terrible, tragic stories that they flood our brains all day long if we choose to let them. And the stuff we see on TV and on the radio and on the social media, all that stuff it comes from someone who wants to put that in our brains, probably for some kind of monetary benefit to them, usually. But we have a choice of whether to listen, whether to watch, whether to take that negative information in. It is a choice.
I love that. And as you were talking and describing basically how you've been able to have all this energy and the thought process that come along with it, I'm curious to know if your perspectives on what can bring joy to our lives has changed. If you look at the younger version of Mariah and Byron.
Yeah,
very much so. I found many years ago when we got together, probably, that I had a choice, and I had not realized for years that I didn't have to look at negative stuff. I could put a boundary around myself to keep myself safe, basically, from other people trying to persuade me to be negative in their way or believe what they believed. And so I have to give Byron credit for that. Early on, he said, you don't have to have them run your life still. You're an adult, you're responsible, and you can choose who you interact with and put boundaries up. And by doing that, then I started learning more, and I started reading more about spirituality, about how we are able to integrate different things in our lives. And I found that the people who became my teachers basically through books, this was many, many years ago, way before the internet, but I was fortunate because I followed Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer and people who really brought a lot of spirituality and told me things that I wasn't aware of how to create my own boundaries and bring in a little more spirituality to my life. And that really helped me a lot.
Yeah. For someone to live a more joyful life, I think adopt the idea that a lot of what we do is a choice, including what I just mentioned about social media and all that. Also, in fact, we mentioned this in our newest book, Mindset Matters. The first chapter of that book is about abundance. And we decided a long time ago that we don't live in a zero-sum world. We live in an abundant world. Nobody's ever going to convince me that if I win, someone else has to lose. That's not true. We can all win. It's an abundant world. And as we mentioned in that first chapter, the way you view that expression in an abundant world, that kind of determines your mindset. Because if you believe that we live in a limited, zero-sum world, that's your mindset. And so you're never going to be an entirely happy person when other people are winning all around you. You're going to feel like you're losing. It's unavoidable. But if you can possibly choose, again, that word, to adopt the idea that we live in an abundant world, there is enough for everyone in this world. Everybody can win. And once you assimilate that idea, then life gets better automatically.
One thought that comes to mind is the current economic reality and a lot of the layoffs that we're hearing about in the news almost every single day. And it may be easy for certain individuals who choose to embrace a scarcity mindset. There's limited jobs, limited opportunities, and so on. And who may, because of that mindset, actually spiral down into a victim mentality, into depression, and so on. What would be one tip that you may have for those individuals that may be struggling in this particular moment? What actions can they take to come out of that dark place and bring more joy to their life?
You're right. It is a challenge for many, many people, and has been for the last 3 years. When we look back at what was going on in the world right this moment 3 years ago, things were really scary for all of us. We didn't have a vaccine. People were dying. People were out of work and really had a tough time. And some people have still continued to struggle through that whole time. Your point is very valid. And we, as Byron said earlier, we never want to downplay someone else's real critical things they're going through. But one thing we do know is that if you can find one little thing that is positive and focus on that, even if it's just something as simple as I have clean water today. And there are people in the world who don't. It's unlikely the people that don't are listening to this because they might not have electricity or any device to hear it or see it on. But for people who have that ability to look at that and say, okay, I do have clean water. I do have a safe place to stay. Not everybody has that either. And so to find something that you do have in your life and start bringing your focus to that specific thing, one step at a time. Then maybe tomorrow you can add something to it. Today I had some nutritious food. I had good water and I had nutritious food. And maybe the next day it becomes where you're in a shelter. And okay, now I have shelter too. So just add each little thing that you can, and that can help to lighten up your load on your mindset.
Thank you for that valuable advice. What are some of the things that you have on your bucket list, some things that you absolutely aspire to achieve that will continue bringing you joy and also more joy to this world?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind for us is we are at our age, we talked about our age, and we have decided that we don't have a right to talk about these things. We have a responsibility to do that. And so that's why we are very interested in getting on as many public stages as we can. We're looking for opportunities to share this message. And we think we are, in fact, we think we're aligned. If for whatever reason, we are required to do this. It's our mandate to elevate, if you will. And so that's what we're focused on. Mariah says what you focus on expands. That's what we're focused on right now.
We're actually invited to help in a virtual kids camp this year to bring this message to children.
Yeah.
And we're also invited to do things with boomers and that demographic. So we like to think that we're going to span the whole age spectrum because we know that everyone needs these tools, just like you're committed to spreading joy. And that elevates people. And that's how we were attracted to you and you to us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And the point you've just brought here now brings us to purpose. So when did both of you find your life purpose?
The first thing that pops into my head, many years ago, Mariah and I worked with the LGBTQ community during the push in the US, at least, for marriage equality for everybody. And we found real joy in helping that effort in the very meager way we did. And when our gay and lesbian friends were granted the right to marry, it was such a joyful time that's one of the things that propelled us to keep doing what we do. And so, and here's how we ended. This is a quote that we ended our TEDx talk with from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Yes.
The person said, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." And so we are busy trying to help other people, to facilitate other people's acquisition of who they really are, to become who they truly are. Because we believe everyone has a unique gift, and we all need that gift. You know, we don't want anybody hiding their gift. We need them to share it with all of us. So, and that gives everybody joy when that happens.
And it's so true. I'm sure you must have heard about the research about NASA that was exploring the concept of creativity and geniuses, and they went to NASA to basically identify the geniuses from a creative perspective. And they were so intrigued by the results that they decided to apply the same test to 5-year-olds. And this is when they realized that 90%, more than 90% of the 5-year-olds were also ranking on the scale of genius. And isn't it fascinating how when you look at this research, you can say, wow, we are all born geniuses with a potentiality within us, which is unlimited. And we just need to recognize that and continue building it. But you see, that specific research, what they had done, because they were so fascinated by these young kids, they continued measuring them on the same test through their lifespan. And this is how they realized how society and education was actually contributing to the decline of their genius capacity. And it's so sad because indeed, as you're saying, sometimes we're expected to be in a certain way, or we want to have, people labeled in a specific way. And it's so important to recognize the uniqueness that we each have within us and let that shine. And what comes to mind is the importance of parents and also mentors, as you were playing a role in the LGBT community that you just described, the role of mentors, of people that inspire us to really look at our lives and our capabilities in a new way, like you are doing, is so essential. We need more people like you in this world, create a better world, definitely.
Well, thank you for saying that.
What would be 5 words that you would use to describe yourselves if you would take away your titles, your background, your history, your age? How would you both define yourselves?
Well, I know he'd say I was a Pollyanna.
Yes, you would.
I always had this positivity within me. I see the glass always full. It's just who I am. I don't know exactly where that came from, but I know that I believe in people and I see joy and love and energy in people. When they can't see it in themselves, I believe in them. And that's something that's just been there forever, whether it was with patients who really were down and didn't believe in themselves, or whether it was somebody on the street. I make sure that I find that value in them. So when they can't see it themselves, I can see it in them for them.
Beautiful.
I guess I would say hopeful, believe it or not. In fact, recently someone asked me why I had hope for society going forward. And I think my answer kind of confused him, because I said I'm hopeful because of all the disruption in the world. Because I'm old enough to see the sweep of history. And I know that disruption like this always has led to better lives and a better world. It always has. And so I'm hopeful that because of all the disruption in the last 3 or 4 years, that we're going to emerge from this as a better society. I'm convinced of it.
I love it. So what would be one thing that we could all do collectively to actually elevate the joy in our world?
Good question.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah. Wow.
Let me think about that. I would have to just say, take a look at what you are around, what you surround yourself with, and try to find more positive activities,
including people.
Yeah. To elevate yourself.
Yes.
And listen to your podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you so much. And Mariah and Byron, final question. If there would be one thing that you could change from your past, would there be something you would like to change? And if that's the case, what would that be?
Wow. You just got the best questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, I don't know. That's a good one. I'm not sure I'd change anything, because if you change one thing, you change everything. So I guess if I had to say, I would say I wish I had adopted this mindset many years ago.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, and I think that's true for me too. I wish I would not have believed all the bullies that told me I was stupid and dumb for years. And you just mentioned that about the study, and
Yeah.
the genius part goes down and down and down and down.
Mhm.
So I wish I hadn't bought into the negativity of society and understood that whatever I told myself became my reality. And that's what I would like to see for young people, is that they get to choose who they are and know that they are very worthy. Their lives are so important.
Yeah.
And they have so much potential to create a beautiful world in front of us.
More than they realize, I think.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Mariah and Byron. It's been an immense pleasure to have you with us today. The insights and the energy you exude is contagious. I absolutely love it. Keep shining and keep sharing your wisdom with this world, transforming it into a more joyful world. So thank you again.
Thanks,
Thank
Andrea.
you.
We appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.